how can you sort of summarize the latest conferences? What are sort of the questions? It's been Pareto conference, you've been in London. What is the sentiment? What are people curious about on a high level?
So yeah, like you said, we've typically after the earnings release, you start focusing on investor meetings and like you said, the Pareto conference, which is a great meeting place for investors and companies in the maritime and energy space. We focus a lot on that conference, and then this week we went to London to meet some investors there and participate in Capital Link. And I think the main focus there is to among the investors is what's happening in the market, because the market has been very volatile this year. We've been down to we came in at $30,000 a day. We fell down to $10,000 a day per day after the Chinese introduced their retaliatory tariffs after Liberation Day. And then the market started climbing again, and today we are at $75,000 per day in the spot market, which is a very solid rate environment. And obviously the investors would like to understand what is the reasoning behind this volatility, what can we expect for the coming 12 months, 18 months, what's the fundamentals looking like. And I think so we spend a lot of time on talking about the market and what is actually driving the market at the moment. So, and of course this year has been very much formed and shaped by geopolitics. I mentioned the retaliatory tariffs that the Chinese introduced on US source LPG and other commodities as well after Liberation Day, which hit our market instantly, and the rates reacted and fell off the cliff within just a couple of days, from $40,000 per day to $10,000 per day before the market rebalanced and the activity picked up again. So I think and one important part of this, which we try to explain to the investors, is that LPG is a byproduct of the crude oil and natural gas production in the US, the Middle East, and also other parts of the world. And everything which is not consumed domestically has to be exported to the international market because it is this byproduct. So you have this very efficient price to clear mechanism for all the excess production of the product, so it can hit the international market. And you have another thing which is quite I would say fortunate from a shipping perspective, which is that you have this great dislocation of production of LPG in the US and the big consumer markets in Asia, which creates this very shipping intensive commodity trade which has fueled the VLGC market for many years now. So we talk a lot about these fundamentals so that the investors can understand what is actually driving the market, and that we, from our point of view, believe it's a very solid market also going forward, based on the fundamentals that we see in the market.
Great summary. So if you had to answer a question, what's the correlation between geopolitics and the LPG market? It's like you said, maybe it's also multi-layered, first order consequence, second order consequence, because like you said, it sort of has to go into the market regardless. So maybe that's also the fascinating part with geopolitics and LPG. That is not, it's, I don't know, if you spend a lot of time thinking, okay, if this is initiated from a government perspective, how certain are you of the consequences, given the summary you gave just now? You always just, it's hard to truly know, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think shipping has always been exposed to geopolitics, and I mean, regardless of, it hits the various shipping segments in a different way. For instance, the Russian-Ukraine war has impacted the tanker market, a lot, while our market has been less affected because it's not really impacting the commodity trade as such. While the trade between the US and Asia is a major driver for our markets, and obviously what's happening then between China being the biggest importer of US LPG and the US, you know, that game is obviously impacting us a lot. So, but it was very interesting to see the resilience in the LPG market. So when the Chinese importers basically stepped back from the market, there were other players in the market in Asia which took up that void space, and that was the Indian importers, Japanese, Koreans, and also actually Middle East producers who saw that opportunity to capitalize on the situation.
For people who are totally new to this sector, how can we introduce LPG just in general? Because it's such a fascinating, you know, product. It goes into essential things like heating, cooking, plastic production. Is there a simple way to just introducing the market?
Yeah, sure. And like you say, it's a very versatile commodity. Like mentioned, it's a byproduct from the crude oil and natural gas production, it's easy to handle. You know, if you think about your own barbecue, you have that canister or cylinder, which is easy to carry around, and you can, compared to natural gas, for instance, you can very easily capture new markets simply because you don't need a lot of infrastructure investments to distribute the LPG. So it's easy to handle, competitively priced. Like I said, it has to be exported to the international market since it is this byproduct, which the producers need to get rid of at one point. Has a high calorific value. It's relatively clean. It burns cleaner than kerosene and biomass and wood and so on, which is why a lot of the major market for LPG is the residential sector in, let's say, less developed part of the world, like the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and so on. You know, this is there are big government programs to support and subsidize the use of LPG because it's a cleaner burning fuel than many of the alternatives. And then you have that other that other big market which you mentioned, which is it's a feedstock for the petrochemical industry, especially in Northeast Asia. That market has grown tremendously over the last 6, 7, 8 years, predominantly in China. We also have other markets like auto gas. We also use it as a marine fuel. And for us in the LPG shipping space, you know, it's a great alternative for burning compliant fuel. We reduce our CO2 emissions. It's cheaper actually per metric ton than burning compliant fuel as well because of the high calorific value of the LPG. So it has a lot of appliances, which makes it quite a unique commodity to compared to many other commodities.